Here we have a paperback book without pasted down end papers. The first free end paper gets straight into the biographical information of the author Jane Austen and of the Oxford scholar who provides the introduction and notes on the text, and then over the page the textual advisor. Then we have the first title page. I say first because there is a second one which I'll get to in a moment, which provides the author, title, editor's information, and the publisher, Penguin Books. Then we have, over the page, we have the copyright page, which tells us that the original text was published in 1818. Penguin Classics originally published this in 1995, and this edition was reissued in 2003 with a new chronology and further reading. Other half of the leaf, we have the contents page, which, as you can see, we have a generous amount of secondary information. So this book is probably designed for students. Secondary information prior to the actual text itself. Then when we flip to the beginning of the novel, we're gifted with a second title page, which is actually a copy of the original first edition title page from 1818, which we can see we don't actually have the name of the author because Jane Austen didn't attach her name to any of her books, which was published during her life. This was published posthumously with Persuasion as well. And we can see there's a biographical notice of the author, which was written by her brother Henry Austen, which is quite important. We'll get to it in a second. So that's really nice. And then at the back we have some plates. So we have a plate of a map of Bath in England circa 1803, which is where and when a lot of this novel takes place. And then we have some plates of some real life abbeys. So it gives the reader an idea of what the fictional Northanger Abbey might look like. Marks of ownership on this particular book. We've got very creased joints from repeated rereads and the spine. Repeated rereads. I did use this book as a text for Year 11 English, and that also explains the dog ears on the front and back boards because it was crammed in and out of a school bag. So we also have on some of the pages where I've marked it for this video so I know where I'm going, but I have not annotated this book, so we don't have any evidence of that. I was reminded of my experience with this book studying this unit actually when we were learning about the moral panic surrounding women reading novels, because a lot of this novel is about the naive heroine who loves her gothic novels and gets a little bit carried away with what she's consumed with what she's read. So I thought this book was appropriate for this unit, especially because when I read the book originally, I was about 15 or 16, which is roughly the age of the naive heroine of the book. And I was more similar to her than I thought. Now that I'm older and wiser, I realize a lot of the more nuanced social commentary went over my head. I was conned by the same characters as the heroine was, even though Austen does drop hints, but I just wasn't worldly enough to pick up at the time. So I would like to read this again after this unit is finished, armed with the historical context around novel reading and also just being older and wiser, because I think it's going to be a fresh reading experience, which I'm looking forward to. The reception for Northanger Abbey was in some way affected by this biographical notice attached by Henry Austen. He did name Jane in this biographical notice, which was unusual, as she never liked to attach her name to her novels because she was quite unpretentious and she wasn't a fame seeker. So this was quite significant, and he also really talked up her unpretentious character and her religiosity. And Butler, who edited this book, suggests that this religious emphasis really influenced some of the positive reception and the reviews of this book. She says some of the early reviews really were more biographical in nature than about the book itself, which would have been influenced by the biographical notice, and a really positive review by Richard Whatley in the Quarterly Review, which seized upon this religiosity, and she believes this ensured its longevity through the Victorian era, which is quite significant.